Hey everyone, this is Dr. Matt with the Ethos Athletes podcast, and today we have a local expert and athlete, Bo Ash, on our podcast. Bo is a functional fitness coach, yoga instructor, and wellness advocate. Bo, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
So, I'd like to start out with, you do CrossFit and you do yoga as well. So let's kind of delve into that a little bit more. Tell me a little bit how you got into the world of CrossFit.
The world of CrossFit started, of course, just through fitness in general. Just a little story of me trying to get healthy when I was a teenager, and that turned into wanting to be fit because I wanted to join the Air Force. So that's where the fitness kind of started. And then once I joined the Air Force, the fitness jersey kind of changed. It, of course, started just because I wanted to, look a certain way. I was trying to lose weight, trying to look fit, and it's kind of evolved, but it started as just a general fitness, and then the Air Force, I knew I needed to be fit, so I was always trying to stay fit for that, and it kind of took its road between bodybuilding. I did bodybuilding for a while, where I went all the way to reaching 240 pounds in the bodybuilding world, and of course things changed from there, and I wanted to become a runner, so I started running, and I spent many years as a long distance runner, so couple full marathons, and I kind of settled into half marathons is kind of where I, for my age group, I kind of thrived at. Like, I was pretty decent for my size and age. And then from running, probably a year or two before I was Air Force, I was just every night before I go to the gym, I'd always go on YouTube and just search for motivational videos. And at the time, it was all about bodybuilders and runners, and I just randomly came across a CrossFit video, and I don't even remember who it was or what it was, but at the time, I was very skeptical of separating muscle building and cardio, running and bodybuilding. And it might have been Jason Khalipa maybe, but it was a bigger guy doing CrossFit. I was oh man, let me give that a try. So I was training at Gold's Gym, typical bodybuilder stuff. But upstairs they had a makeshift rig, that nobody ever used.
Okay.
So I started doing it there, and I was working swing shift at the time, so I worked from 3 to 11 p.m. And I would take my troops with me, and I would just make up CrossFit workouts. I would just throw circuits together up there, and that's how the CrossFit started.
Okay.
And then as soon as I moved to Scottsdale, that's probably the second or third day. It was right after I got out of the military. I was at Gold's Gym on, what is it? Rain Tree 101. It was Gold's Gym at the time. Now I think it's Exos or something.
Okay.
And I was on my phone, and I just got done lifting weights, and I went to Google Maps and I typed in CrossFit Gym, and the first one that popped up was Urban Warfit, which was right by there at the time. And I walked in Urban Warfit, tried my first class, and I was hooked. Right, it wasn't even the CrossFit side of it. I think I just missed community. Right, I just got out of the military. I was kind of just lost, trying to find a community, and that was it. And that's kind of how it first started, was walked in the door of Warfit and saw that, and I was this is what I want to do.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah.
Now how did you get into yoga?
I got into yoga through CrossFit. Just kind of how CrossFit evolved. I walked in as a member, wanted to start being an athlete in it, so I started competing in it, which in turn, within the next 3 months, I was I'm just a type where anything I learn, I want to teach.
Okay.
That's just how I've always been. I was a teacher in the military, just kind of part of my personality. So I want to teach CrossFit. I got my level 1, I think I might have been 6 months into CrossFit, not even. And I got my level 1, and just things lined up for me. I always had good people around me. And a month after I got my level 1, a good friend of mine, Michael Anders, who was in and out of Urban at the time, trying to open his own gym, he came up to me and said, "Hey, do you want to open? Do you want to be my first coach for this gym?" And I had never coached yet. I was a month in, but of course I was yeah, let's do it.
Yeah.
So I went left Urban to go with him and helped open CrossFit PHX with him, and that's where I found yoga. Is we brought it in as a recovery day.
Okay.
And it was on Wednesdays, and so that's kind of how I got into yoga. We used it as more of a recovery day, but it kind of turned into more the first time I ever did yoga, it was at that gym, and it was a big I guess you would say hip opening class.
Yeah.
And I kind of dealt with some energy shifts, right? at the time I didn't really believe in all this, but it kind of sparked an interest in me, right? It kind of scared me, interested me, and that's kind of how the first yoga experience went, and then I just kind of went from there.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's really cool. And then you decided to teach it and go
so I was doing yoga there, and I took a break from it because of some things I was dealing with. It was after that first class, and after class I had to coach another class, but I felt like real funky. Like, it was really weird. Like, I was on this border of like wanting to cry for some reason, but no negative thoughts. Like, I'm a super positive person. I usually have no problem keeping my mindset positive, but for some reason I just felt like I wanted to cry.
Okay.
And it scared me. So I didn't do yoga for like another 4 months. And then again I was like, okay, I'm ready to do it more. And then so I was doing it there, and life things happened. I actually left PHX to go back to Urban as a coach, and then I got an opportunity to go coach CrossFit in Kuwait. That's a whole another crazy story.
Yeah.
But I didn't end up going.
Okay.
I ended up going to Canada with my my girlfriend at the time. So in this time I wasn't really doing yoga anymore.
Yeah.
And went to Canada, and things didn't work out, and that's another story too. But I ended up coming back to Scottsdale, and I was it was one of those breaking points where I was kind of lost at the time, and I got a job at Alpha One Training to be one of their main coaches, and ended up starting coaching there. And the Alpha One studio is also a yoga studio, and so I walked into Alpha as a coach, not realizing there was yoga there, and I was like, you know what, let me try yoga again. So I started doing yoga there.
Okay.
And just like fell in love with it again. I was doing yoga every single day, 4 or 5 days a week, and it was just, I love the teachers there, and I had 2 really good teachers, Anton and Desiree, who just really, really helped me. And it became to this point where me and Anton at the time were really good friends, and he really just saw something in me. He's like, I think you need to teach, right? Like, you have just stuff to share, whether it was my energy or my experience. And at the time, so yoga teacher trainings are expensive, they're like $3,000 plus.
Yeah, a couple thousand.
And
sure.
and at that time in my life, I came back from Canada, just no job, no car, no house. Like, I was at the bottom. I was like, I can't afford $3,000 right now. And, randomly, I remember I left the gym, and I got a call from, my friends there, my yoga teachers and the front desk and the people at Life Power. And they're like, hey, we really think you need to do yoga teacher training. We know your situation, so we got you a scholarship. And the scholarship was they gave out like 1 a year countrywide in lifetime.
That's crazy.
Like, as a corporation.
Okay.
And they put me in for it, and I got it. And I just remember getting that phone call, and I was just got choked up, and I just had a stomach ache. And so I took teacher training, and I didn't really go in there thinking I was going to teach. And as it went on, I kind of, and I don't know if it's because I got the scholarship, but I kind of had this, I don't know, maybe like an obligation to, you know what I mean?
Makes
like
sense.
Kind of just like taking this as a sign of like, hey, like, they saw something in me, everything aligned for me to be here. Like, I need to do something with it.
This is something you're meant to do.
Yeah. And a lot of people who go through teacher training don't end up teaching. They just do it because they want to, gain more knowledge in their practice and just learn more. But I just always knew, again, as that side of me, and when I learned I want to teach, it was just something I felt so grateful for, that I just wanted other people to, I guess I want to be part of that for other people too.
Yeah.
Right? And after teacher training, I've always had amazing people on my side, and 6 months later I had like a full teaching schedule, and just kind of went from there.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's a really cool story.
Yeah, it's super crazy.
So you're pretty versatile. I mean, you've done bodybuilding, long distance running, CrossFit, and yoga.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I've certainly encountered this where you could talk to, say, a yoga instructor about CrossFit, and so most of the times that I've done that, they have a negative view of CrossFit.
Oh, yeah, like back and forth.
Yeah, absolutely, and it goes both ways. CrossFit to yoga, bodybuilding to CrossFit, vice versa. Like I don't know, everyone always seems to be like throwing shade at the other, and why theirs is better. But you're unique in the sense that you've done a bunch of it. So how have you seen the combination of them? How have you seen one sport help you develop strengths in another, or have you seen that at all? Or
they talk crap about each other.
Yeah.
Pretty much is what it is. But I think it's the way they're looking at it, right? So I think the what I've learned and everything I've done is in the center of everything is people are doing things to be better humans,
right?
And I think that's a common ground we could come to. It's each one of them has their own aspects of how they're making you better, right? CrossFitters maybe not aware of it, but CrossFit is making them a better human, right? It's making them healthier. It's making them inspire people. It's helping them love themselves. And the same thing goes for yoga. They're just doing it consciously in two different ways. But subconsciously, they're both meeting the same, they're both meeting the same path.
Yeah.
Right? So what I've seen with that is CrossFit helps yoga people. I feel like CrossFit's helped me in yoga, one, just strength, right? To maintain, yoga's hard, right? It's hard to hold poses for a long time. It's super hard, yeah. Like physically, it's tough.
Yeah, it is.
And so if you're looking at the physical side of it, it's helped me sustain a physical practice a lot better, right? Okay. I can handle it. I don't get sore from the stretching as much. I can hold poses longer. But more so on the mental side of it, how they interact is CrossFit is a very mental focused sport, whether we realize it or not. There's times in the workouts where you're talking to yourself, you're yelling at yourself, or you're calming yourself down. You have an internal dialogue, which is the same way in yoga.
Yeah.
So I had a CrossFit background going into yoga, but I realized CrossFit had helped me create a mindset that made yoga more bearable, right? Because in yoga, when I got to that point of, oh my gosh, it's like, this hurts, I want to come out of this. What I've learned in CrossFit came in, it's like, no, like, you can handle this. Like, I would talk myself through it. And then on the other side of it, in yoga, it gives me time to reflect and to talk to myself and create a positive dialogue with myself, right? Which in turn, when I go back to CrossFit and I'm in those moments of negative self-talk and I'm in a workout and I fail at something and I'm yelling at myself, I can kind of step back and redirect that energy into more of a positive, right? Like, no, you could do this. You've sat through worse, gone through worse, like, just stay in it. So it's helped me create a more positive dialogue in CrossFit. And that's the biggest connection I've seen through the two.
Nice. I like that a lot. Yeah. That's really cool. Now, you currently only practice CrossFit and yoga, right? Mm-hmm. Like you don't do any more bodybuilding, you don't do any more half marathons. How have you been able to make the two uniquely your own?
I think the biggest thing is keeping them. I've kept it separated, right? Okay. Like even as a teacher and a coach, the reasons I do each are very different. Okay. But I'm aware of why I'm doing it. So uniquely my own is, I know, like, I'm never going into yoga for a workout.
Okay.
Right? Like, I'm going into yoga for a break from the world. I'm going in because I need to connect with myself more. I'm going in to reflect. I'm going in to breathe. And maybe I'm going into stretch and recover, which is last for me, right? Like, right. That's not the reason I'm going in. And then when I do CrossFit, I'm going into CrossFit to express myself physically. I'm going into CrossFit to release, I guess you could say, anger, energy. I'm going into CrossFit to do the things that I know are going to help me be better outside of the gym. Right? So uniquely my own is just very well knowing why I'm doing each of them, right? And not getting it mixed up. Right? When I go into yoga, I have the mindset of why I'm doing it, and I'm there to keep myself calm and connect with myself and talk to myself and breathe. And when I go to CrossFit, I'm there to let loose. I'm there to it's okay to be angry in there. It's okay to yell. It's okay to be confident in myself. Sometimes it's okay a little bit to be a little bit arrogant or bold, or stuff like that, where if I don't have those spaces, if I don't have CrossFit when I'm living my daily life, it's going to come out in ways I don't like. It's going to come out maybe at home with my wife, or it's going to come out when I get in an argument with a friend, because I haven't, CrossFit's where I release that so I could be more of the human I want to be outside of there. But if you don't have those outlets, I always tell people CrossFit's not a place to meditate, right? And yoga's not a place to do fitness.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
And really take that off your mind, because a lot of people will be like, well, CrossFit is where I let my stress out, and it's where there's a difference between distracting stress and releasing stress.
Okay.
I believe CrossFit distracts us from stress, right?
Okay.
Like in our lives, if we're going through things, yes, the gym, and I used it in my past as that too, but I realized the more I get into yoga, I'm not dealing with stress while I'm working out, I'm just distracting it. I'm not thinking about it.
Okay.
But when you leave the gym, it's still there.
Yeah.
Yoga is a place where I'm actually releasing the stress and dealing with it, because I'm in a space that I'm thinking about what's going on in my life. I'm thinking about how I feel. I'm thinking about what my mindset is. And that's the space where you're dealing with the stress. You're not distracting from it.
Yeah.
And people mix those two up. And I think people need both those spaces to create just a well-balanced human. Not just an athlete, but just as a person.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, and I love that. I love that perspective that you have on it, because like with me personally, so I do both,
Mm-hmm.
and with yoga, when I go in, my thought process for the only reason I'm doing yoga is for stretching and recovering.
Yeah,
And within like 20 minutes, I'm done with this. Like, I'm bored out of my mind. Like I can't. Yeah. Whereas CrossFit's more like an energy release for me, different things like that. And I think having, and I'll be honest, I suck at going to yoga because I'm like, okay, well, after 20 minutes, I'm bored.
Yeah.
So I think going and reframing it that way, that's a much better way to do it. Is this is more time for myself and
and if you're predominantly thinking in a CrossFitter's mindset, that's what yoga is to us.
Yeah, absolutely.
So maybe shifting the thought of say I don't care if you're a games athlete or somebody doing it just as general fitness. Say it's your rest day and you're like, I'm going to go to yoga. Make sure you're thinking of yoga. I'm not going in here as an athlete or CrossFitter. I'm going in here as Bo, the human.
Right.
So the benefit I'm getting from it is stretching and recovering for CrossFit, which I love, but it's also to balance all those aspects of my life. Me as a friend, me as the interaction with myself, me as a companion to my partner, me as a coach, me as a teacher. So it's balancing all those, right? So going in there thinking not so directed like I'm going to yoga for recovery for CrossFit. Go into it as just I'm going into it to feed myself.
Yeah.
Everything.
Yeah. I love that.
Yeah.
That's a great. I really love that reframe. That's a really cool way to think of it. So you've mentioned a few things here, but maybe we can go through the list, or you might add some other things. What are the top reasons that you do CrossFit and yoga? You've talked about being healthy, releasing stress. Maybe kind of reiterate those a little bit more.
I'm kind of going the direction I know. Like, say my jobs are I coach functional fitness.
Right.
I teach yoga. And I'm trying to go in the direction of just doing things for the whole part of who I am, okay. Right? Like the human I am. And overall is just being proud and happy with the person I am in all areas of life as a balance, right? And really keeping that focused. I personally do CrossFit. It's evolved over time of why I do fitness, period. But I do CrossFit because I know it keeps me accountable, right? So what does CrossFit teach me in the gym that I take outside of the gym with me, right? It teaches me to deal with discomfort, right? It teaches me, which is a tool I use in life all the time. It teaches me how to recognize fears and that I'm able to push past them, right? It teaches me just how to push myself to the edge and push my capabilities and just show myself what I'm made of, right? And I guess you could say yoga kind of does the same thing, but more on the human mental side of it, right? It teaches me how to be present. And if I could be present in yoga, I could be present with every interaction I have. It teaches me how to realize my feelings and thoughts and how to let go of things, right? And how much our daily lives actually matters. At the end of the day, 90% of stuff we do during the day, it doesn't truly matter, right? Like, it's realizing everything's temporary, right? It's realizing when to pick your battles, when you feel like standing up for yourself, if you're standing up for yourself versus, if it's just to do with your ego, right? And that's a lot of it, especially for me as a male, is it gives me time to realize what I've been doing is ego driven and just to prove myself to others and prove myself to other men and prove people wrong or prove that I'm better than people. And it gives me time to really focus on that and, really decide why I'm doing what I'm doing.
Okay.
I think that's the biggest thing. It keeps me present in my why.
I love that. So you've talked about how this has impacted other aspects of your life. What is there anything more you can add on to that on where it's impacted you? I mean, you've mentioned with some of your own personal stuff, like and then also with relationships with friends, various things like that. Where else have you seen it impact?
I think starting off with just myself internally, the biggest impact I've seen is just, I guess you would say, where I focus where I draw my happiness from. Like, the biggest thing I've noticed with CrossFit, which I'm so happy for, is I spent most of my life caring about what I looked like, right? Like, what I looked like with my shirt off, what clothes I wore, what car I drove, where, stuff like that. And the biggest thing, and mostly every goal I had, whether it was running or bodybuilding, the food I ate, everything led up to looking a certain way. Okay. And that led into, all my conversations with friends would be more about superficial stuff. It'd be about your biceps and, the sneakers you're wearing and our cars. I'm obsessed with cars, and that was a big part of my life. And CrossFit really shifted that mindset of, like, I'm doing these things. Of course, looks is part of it, but it's like the byproduct of, like, caring for yourself, caring about your health, seeing yourself get stronger, seeing yourself get faster, seeing this progress in, like, what I'm able to do, not like what I look like. Yeah. And that's probably the biggest thing I'm thankful for CrossFit for, is because that was a big obsession of mine. It was a big fear of mine of, how people saw me, like, how big I was or how fit I was, so that's probably my biggest thing that I think CrossFit gave me.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And then yoga just gave me, it really put in perspective of what I needed to put focus on that meant true happiness to me. And I always talk about this all the time now, of, especially in today's society, like, we have this list of where we draw happiness from it. And most of the time, if you ask most people, they'll be like, what do you think are the most important things in life for happiness? And we're all pretty much going to say the same things, your companion, if you have one, making your children happy or proud, like, all these things that seem very simple, and, like, family's important, all that kind of stuff. But what you say is important, what you're focusing on sometimes seems like different things. Yeah. Right? Like, if I have this list, family, kids, spouse, myself, right, are on that list, but here we are focusing a lot of our life on talking about and thinking about what we look like, right, what new clothes we want, if this person likes me. So it's like, is what you're saying and what you're doing lining up? Right. Right? And that's the biggest thing yoga's taught me, is to take a step back and realize, like, hey, what matters to me most right now is me being totally happy with who I am. And then I tell myself that, and it gives me time to be like, well, what am I talking about throughout the day? What is my internal dialogue? Am I being positive to myself, or am I putting myself down? If I'm putting myself down a lot, that's not going to make me happy with myself. right? If I'm trying to care more about what I feel like than what I look like, I can't sit here and talk to all my friends about, you know, how cool their shirt is and how cool their six-pack is. Like, I need to talk to them about my goals and my dreams and who I want to be and what I want to become. So yoga just gives me time to audit and reflect, right? Audit my thoughts, audit my speech, audit how I'm treating people, and reflect on that and realize, like, okay, this is what I want, but here's what I've been saying. Yeah. So now I need to get those in line.
Yeah.
And that's probably the biggest thing that yoga's given me, that power to step back in the middle of conversations and realize, you know, am I talking more than I'm listening? Why am I saying what I'm saying? Like, what's the outcome I'm trying to get out of this conversation? And also, when I leave people and reflect on the conversations too, just the power of reflection, the power of awareness, the power to step back and just like check yourself, right? And be like, no, I didn't like the way I talked in that conversation. So tomorrow, or next time I see this person, I'm going to, you know, try to fix it.
Yeah, I love that.
That's kind of what it gives me.
So if I remember correctly, you're a pretty big like self-improvement junkie and stuff, right? Have you seen, you're like myself, so have you seen the video with Simon Sinek where he talks about finite and infinite goals? So it lends, you know, it's very, very similar to what you just said, where individuals who have like these finite goals, so in the examples that you gave, superficial, how do I look, how do I do this, once they hit them, they don't know what to do, and they're kind of like, you know, they're depressed. So he gave an example of Michael Phelps or Andre Agassi. So Andre Agassi wanted to be like the best tennis player in the world, and once he hit that, he was depressed, and he didn't have anywhere to go after that. Same thing with Michael Phelps. He wanted to be the most decorated Olympian, and he hit it, and then shortly after that, he had a mild bout of depression. And so he talks about that and replacing finite goals. And finite goals are important in their own right, but making sure
the instant gratification goals.
Right, exactly. Yeah. And so you can. It's good to have those, but make sure that it doesn't deviate from an infinite goal, which is just improving yourself as a person, or various things like that, like making sure you give as much love to your family or your spouse, or. And so he talks about with infinite goals, you don't ever hit. There's always another level. You don't ever hit an end to it, and how important that is. And so it sounds like you've come to that realization on your own.
Yeah, definitely.
With what you do in CrossFit and yoga, which is really cool.
Yeah, it's more not even myself. I'm just very fortunate that like I get to observe people all day long. Yeah, right? I get to have amazing conversations, and so yeah, that's kind of how I've built that. Is just kind of listening to people and. Saying what you think is important, but is what you're doing matching it. And of course that too, it's like nothing instant gratification lasts forever. Like those superficial goals, they don't last. Like even when you hit them, like that happiness doesn't last.
Right.
But like, building a more internal positive dialogue where those goals are there, but it's like the cheesy thing they say, it's all about the process, right? Which it always is, but how do you teach people that it's all about the process, right? Like how do you make people set a goal, but then not make them care about the goal? Yeah, like it's a weird thing, it's a weird battle I think humans have.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's weird.
It's interesting to watch them go through that. So you mentioned that you go and you have the ability and the opportunity to talk to a bunch of different people. In the world that you're in, and you also get to interact with a bunch of CrossFit athletes and yoga, yoga people. So, what is it that you see, that's missing in some of these athletes? Like, do you ever see it, or how often does it come across that they may be doing it for the wrong reasons, or maybe they just need to shift their mind on what their motivation should be? What do you typically see?
The two biggest things I notice that are common in both worlds is one, no matter what people tell you, most of the people in either CrossFit or yoga are there worrying about more what they look like than what they feel like. Okay. No matter what they tell you, that's what I've observed and listened to conversations and self-talk. So that's a big thing. which I find crazy because I think for me, CrossFit and yoga are the exact same, where they taught me to care less about that stuff.
Yeah.
But it's just society's built this monster of us, right?
For sure.
And the second thing, and this is in both of them too, is just lack of awareness of what is going on between your ears. And I mean that by there's so much negative self-talk in both those worlds that I think it stops us from reaching what we're fully capable of doing.
Yeah.
And I noticed that in CrossFit and you can see this in a lot of the top athletes that are becoming more aware of this, is you can become super successful. This could go for anything in life, business, relationship, make a whole bunch of money, become a CrossFit Games athlete, sometimes without awareness, right? You just naturally have ability, or you just went there off of trying to prove people wrong, right? Like you could get really far trying to prove people wrong.
Yeah.
But there's still a limit to it.
Right.
Sometimes people's limits is never even reaching a goal. Some people's limits is I made my ultimate goal. I made $1 million. I made it to the CrossFit Games. But there's still potential they're missing out on. And they're missing out on so much more, I don't want to say success, but so much more fulfilling feeling when they start doing it for themselves, but they never have that awareness, right? They're never watching how they're thinking between their ears, right? They're never listening to themselves, really, right? They're listening, and I notice all the time, it's when they fail, oh, I'm weak, or I suck, or I'm sore today, or I'll never get there, or, yoga is like, this pose, it just never feels right, and it's just like, I'm not flexible, and, so I think those are the two biggest things, is shifting that mindset from looking to feeling,
Okay.
and switching the mindset between awareness, right, and validation.
I like that. What are some ways that you've, obviously there's no magic pill to be able to shift that mindset, right? If there was, we'd all be taking it and someone would be making a lot of money off of it.
For sure.
So, what are some...
I'd be taking it.
Yeah, for sure.
Because it was a lot of work too.
It is. What are some tools that either you've used personally or you've taught others to use to help with that mindset shift?
I would love to say above all is meditation.
Okay.
But sometimes meditation is just a hippie word to people, and it kind of scares them away.
Yeah.
But you could say instead of meditation, you just creating time to reflect.
Mm-hmm.
And I work with many people. Sometimes it could be a 10-minute walk after your 3 meals, right? So 3 10-minute walks a day with no phone. Let's just say that. Because what you'll find is when you're alone, you just kind of think, and then that gives you time to think about what you're thinking.
Yeah,
that's the key. Is are you thinking about what you're thinking?
Okay,
right?
Yeah,
There's that first person in your head that's thinking, and then there's that second system that's thinking about what you're thinking, and that's the key. So you could create so if you can't have a meditation practice, maybe it's just those 10-minute walks a day to create reflection. It can be another tool that I really like is at the end of every day when you're laying in your bed before you go to sleep, you play your day back like a movie, right? Like imagine you're watching a movie of your day and go through all the major points of interaction that you had, right? Every conversation you had with people, all these interactions, and kind of see how you acted, see what you said, see what you thought, and being real with yourself and saying like, is that really the person that I want to be?
Okay.
And I tell people that too, because it's a good way to, if you realize that you did something wrong, like say you overreacted towards somebody, or you just said something related, you're like, oh, like I wish I would have said that. It gives you an opportunity to realize it and be like, okay, tomorrow I'm going to do better. Or say you had a really good day and you're like, oh, I really liked the compliments I gave these people. I liked how I listened. And you're doing those things right. It gives you time to check in, kind of be proud of it, and then take it to the next day with you.
Okay.
And you're playing your day back. You're like, hey, I like that. Let's do more of that tomorrow. I didn't like that. Let's do less of that tomorrow. Okay. So that's another tool that I use with people too.
I love that.
Yeah, it's just giving yourself space, and sometimes it might be listening to a podcast on your way to work or your way home, and just something that causes like it's thought provoking, right?
Yeah.
And then it makes you might hear somebody talking about their awareness in life, and then you're like, oh, now you start thinking about your awareness in life, right? So I think that's it. Time alone, podcast, anything that's thought provoking gives you time to reflect.
Okay.
Yoga, right?
Yeah.
Get into yoga. Sometimes you go into yoga for a physical reason and you come out for a mental reason, but you need to give yourself those opportunities.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are there any other podcasts that you like or that you can recommend?
Yeah, I think everybody's interests are different, but like,
yeah, for sure.
For me, self-development being one of my biggest ones, especially in males.
Yeah.
You know, like I'm a big person, like there's a lot of projects I'm working on right now specifically for males, but Aubrey Marcus,
okay,
he owns a company called On It.
Okay.
And if you're a guy, that's definitely my favorite. Yeah. Aubrey Marcus, School of Greatness with Lewis Howes.
Okay.
Is another one, and my all-time favorite is Joe Rogan.
I like it.
Yeah, those are my 3 favorites.
Cool, perfect. Is there any other advice or any other things that you'd like to give our listeners to that they can start applying to their life to improve their mindset on on their fitness and how they approach fitness?
Just keep making sure keep asking yourself why you're doing it, and ask yourself every day, every new goal you reach, every new goal you set, make sure you're asking why, and you'll mostly find out whether you set it as a physical goal. It's always an internal thing, right? It's always about self-love and just being proud of yourself, and just always making sure the goals you set, the thoughts you have in the gym are all going towards you thinking about yourself more in a positive light.
Awesome.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing. Yeah, and just make sure you know that everything you're doing, every change you want to make, every change you want to see in the world, I don't care if it's about your physical features or your mental, like everything starts inside. Like anytime you're reaching outside of you for validation or happiness, whether it be your spouse loving you, you have friends, you have clothes, cars, all that stuff will feed you to a certain point, but the long-lasting happiness that doesn't go away, it's not so drastic, right? It doesn't peak and crash when we lose a relationship or we get injured or we lose our job. If you focus more on that just internal work, that you're doing all you can to be the best you can, and you're treating people with kindness, and you're treating yourself with kindness, and you're taking care of your nourishment, you're feeding yourself well, you're trying to be as physically able as possible, and you're doing all that, all those other things will, even if they come and go, they won't affect you as much, right? And that's very powerful, and don't try not to give anybody else that much power over your happiness.
Yeah, I love it. Cool. So once again, we're going to go ahead and wrap up here. Once again, we're listening to Bo Ash, who's a functional fitness coach, yoga instructor, and wellness advocate here in Scottsdale. And we discussed achieving happiness through fitness, or life happiness through fitness. And some of the points that Bo made was making sure that you know why you're doing the type of fitness that you're doing. And he really broke down well on how he views yoga and how he views CrossFit and how they each play important roles in his life, and he uses them as different outlets for different things. And so going and changing your mindset on why you're doing those things and can really help you motivate you in staying fit with your particular activities and just helping you improve overall. And one of the other main things that we mentioned was keep asking yourself why you're doing the goals that you're setting out, and make sure that at the end of the day they're always drawing back to self-love and improving yourself in a positive light. Bo also mentioned a few things that you can do in order to start applying and shifting your mindset if that's needed. Some of those things would be meditation and yoga. He gave a list of a number of podcasts that he listens to, and also to make sure that you think about what it is that you're thinking about during this meditation, yoga time, or self-reflection time that you're giving yourself. So at the end of the day, make sure to take time to reflect and to turn any negative thoughts, and use that time to turn any negative thoughts from the day or about yourself into positive ones, and just figuring out ways to be a better person. So Bo, thank you once again for being here on the show.
Oh yeah, thank you. That was so fun. I enjoyed that. Thank you very much.
Yeah, likewise. So thanks again for listening, and we'll catch you on the next episode.
Bye guys.